always support yourself in a healthy, positive way. It's like, people like myself who are in recovery. Like, you see people who can go out and have one drink, which is great. Go out, have a drink, relax, have a conversation with your friends. Then you have other people who, when they say they got to go out and blow some steam off, it doesn't include a glass of wine and conversation. It includes 4 shots of tequila and 8 glasses of vodka tonic. That's the kind of thing that you want to stick away from in terms of how you're applying, additional mental therapy exercise into your normal training plan.
There you are, buddy. How are you?
Hey, welcome. It's Monday. The sun is out. It's March 30th, 2020. Welcome aboard Crushing Iron Podcast 360.
360. All right.
Yeah, 360. Sounds like the beginning of a ESPN special or something. Crushing
does.
Iron Podcast 360. Or whatever it is, like they have like 30 for 30 is what they do. But hey, welcome in. We appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time, hey, settle in, relax, have a cup of joe, maybe some hot tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy a fun-filled, open-style conversation of all things, well, probably triathlon and a little bit of life today. But we keep it relaxed. We come to you twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Traditionally, we've done so for the past 3 years. We have obviously 359 other episodes archived, outlined, descriptions, links, all kinds of fun things. Mike does an outstanding job of doing that. As you sift through and either pick and choose the ones that you feel like apply to you, or re-listen to them when you need them, or if you want to be the person who goes in chronological order from start to finish, you can do that as well. But we cover all things racing, training, specifics, nutrition, race prep, race reviews, race recaps, the occasional person on for an interview. But outside of that, most of the time, as both myself, I'm Coach Robbie, that's Mike, as both coaches and athletes, we generally just kind of open it up and let it flow. See what we're feeling today, see what our community is feeling. We have a really, what I would say, a bustling community on Facebook, Crushing Iron Group. If you want to search that, we'll let you in, be part of some awesome and positive, encouraging conversation, and then we just let it rip. If you want to find out more about us, you can hop over to C26Triathlon.com for all things coaching, community, and camps.
And today, Coach Robbie's going to be a race psychic and tell you when your races are going to be if they're postponed.
Listen, man.
No, you're.
I'm just gonna let it fly today.
All right, you're gonna let it fly. Hey,
go ahead.
Now, this is our responsibility to ourselves as business owners, and
yeah, since we seem
we're
to be
so
really
terrible at that, and I feel bad. It's like, all right, we have an online hub, and we're currently offering a pay what you want. It's loaded with triathlon content, including videos and articles, athlete interviews, athlete profiles. Going to get some more bonus podcasts in there, all that kind of stuff. It's available at C26Triathlon.com. If you go to the online hub tab and hover, it will give you an online preview of what's in there. And we're doing a pay what you want of $9, $29, or $49, and that takes you all the way through September 30th, when we hope to have a few races in.
Yeah, no kidding.
So check that out.
Check that out. And now, back to our show.
Back to the show.
But no, first off, as I think it's responsible of us right now, checking in wise, how are you doing? Most of us have been cooped up for quite a while now. And I know I think you're single, you live alone outside of Maddie, and I think that has its positives, but I also think that has its negatives right now. I think everybody kind of has their, there's positives and negatives to everyone's kind of like home life situation. You got people who are single like yourself, and it's kind of like, hey, I don't really have any extra responsibilities. This is just kind of like my life. I just can't go out when I want to go out. But then you also don't really have any other human interaction, which is a downside to a lot of things. Myself, married, we have a 3-year-old who is like super busy and active and moody and crazy and all the time. It's like something's never changing with no schedule, and that's oftentimes kind of frustrating or stressful, or it can be a lot. But then the other side, it's like we have human contact, like we can talk to other people. So I just think it's, I need to do my due diligence as your friend and ask you how you're doing before we get rolling today.
Yeah. Well, um, I'm not making light of anything, but I feel like pandemics are kind of right up my alley in a way.
They're
I
right.
mean,
They're right in my wheelhouse, man. That's gonna be
um,
on you.
yeah, I was talking to my neighbor about it because he's a musician. He has a studio in his basement. We were kind of over the fencing it the other day, and I was saying how it's weird, but like I almost feel like a little more stabilized in a way because there's something about, getting up and kind of watching everybody go to work on Monday that makes me feel like I'm slacking, even though we're doing work from home. It's an unusual thing to get used to. And then
Hmm.
it almost seems like on Saturdays and Sundays when everybody's staying home, that's when I feel like I'm more productive, in a weird way because I'm like, okay, everybody else is in the same boat now. And I kind of feel like everybody's in my boat in a weird way. And it's sort of like, yeah, everybody's working at home, but you know how that goes. Sometimes it's
Right.
hard to adjust to, and
Hmm.
distractions are there, and it just feels like everything's slowing down a little bit. And I don't know, man. I'm just living my thing. I'm just doing my life and trying to control what I control. There is, I don't know, maybe I'm overestimating it, but when I look, every once in a while, I kind of take a glimpse into what's going on and what's being said out there, and I feel like there's a lot of chaos, but maybe there isn't. At least it's always that top line. When I say look out there, sometimes I will peek at a media website or something like that,
Oof.
and it's unbelievable to me. Like I've been really looking for sources aside from the media to kind of get information and get some sort of rational
Right.
perspective on all this. And I found a lot of rational perspective on it, and I found what I would consider to be good news about everything that will not be published on the front page of said media sites.
Right. You always gotta look for someone who has like little to nothing to gain from a publication or a something they've put out there for people to consume. That's when that's what you gotta find for. But hey, you sound optimistic, you sound happy, you sound settled. That's a good place to be.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's fair to say, man.
that's
I'm
good.
uh, I'm very what is that thing? There's stoicism that people talk about.
Yeah,
I'm sort of right there, man. I'm just in this, control what's within my reach, and
it is what
it's
it
like
is.
no, I'm not. I was actually just writing another article for the Hub, and it started. I'm calling it tentatively the blame game, and
Oh boy.
it's but I just say it because we really do we really do need to kind of look in our own backyards first. I think a lot more. Maybe this is what's happening. Maybe there's some of that going on.
Literally.
Yeah,
Have you seen everybody at Home Depot and Lowe's? Everyone's looking in their backyard right now.
I know.
Um, it
I
is
know.
like home equity time. Like everyone, I do have to say, like, and we'll hop into more applicable things in terms of triathlon training here in a moment. But
We may or may not.
yeah, that's true. I gotta say, man, like, I feel like there are so many. I've just noticed a lot of positives. I know there's a whole lot of chaos and not good going on, but I've seen more people out being active than I ever have in my entire life. And I know some of that has to do with like the changing of the seasons right now. Like I get that.
Mm.
But I've also seen more families doing things together. And I think one of the most fascinating things that I absolutely love, that I wish we would do on like a daily basis year round, is I've seen, because we've had it happen to us, random neighbors walk by our house and we've been outside doing stuff. And they've been like, hey, how are you guys doing? And normally it's just like the wave and like the hey, and they just keep walking. But now everyone feels like, I think, this like empowerment to engage in conversation, to check in on your emotional, mental well-being, because for the first time, there's been this like noticeable, headline of something that we're all in some way, shape, or form being affected by. So we have this like immediate conversation starter, not like, 6 months ago you're walking by a stranger and be say, hey man, how are you doing? Because you have no idea what's going to be said. Then you feel like you have to open up and be vulnerable. But now I like every single person that's walking by. So how are you guys doing? Are you guys doing okay? How are you holding up? I find it incredibly refreshing that we have been given an opportunity to like open up with people face-to-face, online, via whatever mechanism you want to use, and to be like open and honest about what we're feeling and going through. And I genuinely hope that that type of initiative and care stays with us, because I think it has the ability to help people tremendously, from
Good
just
luck, man.
having this. I know it's thanks, man. I appreciate
I'm
it. I was just telling
sorry.
how
No,
optimistic you're being. It's like,
small
all
wins,
right,
man.
grumpy
No,
Gary. But no, it's been awesome. It's I think I found people to be like much more helpful, and I don't know. I'm optimist about that kind of stuff. I hope that sticks around. I'm also a realist and realize it might not. Like, but we're doing good. We had a pretty good week. We crushed the weekend. It is really odd as a coach, like this time of year when things are like revving up. It's really odd to not have any like races to track. Out of like a regular 12-month year where racing is even year round, with everything from 5Ks to cycling events to swim events and every triathlon from all different time zones and all different countries. I think there's only like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weekends of the entire year where I don't have at least one athlete racing. And now I'm in like basically like, 3 of like minimal to like no racing. There are still a couple athletes who are getting to race across the globe, but very little to, if any. And it's just a weird feeling. Like yesterday, we planted a garden. I washed both cars. We cleaned our house inside out. Like we just like attacked it with like a fury. But it was nice. And hey, you better do it now, because if you're making excuses for not doing that kind of stuff now, you're gonna have them all here in a few months, and this stuff changes. But yeah, I'm hopeful. I see a lot of positives. I think the timing of the weather and this home self-restriction that we find ourselves in for a lot of us, I actually think it's going to lead to a boom in outdoor endurance sports in the next 6 to 12 months. I think people are going to. I have multiple friends that work at bike shops. I work with an athlete that owns a bike shop, and most of them have said they have never seen it so busy. With it, not just in terms of people like wanting to get outside and ride. I know it was from the weather, but from like people bringing in bikes that they haven't used for months, or more likely years. They're bringing them in, they're getting service, they're trying to get out, they're doing things for family, they're being active. And I think, again, this may be the optimist here. I can see a real boom and a real uptick in the trend of endurance running events and triathlon as people fall in love with these different types of exercise and outdoor activities that we're being kind of pushed to do to get our only kind of sense of freedom and control right now. So I think it's going to be a good thing. I think obviously in the short term with the races being canceled and postponed, and then the even more kind of confusing part when you've got races in April and early June being like postponed and canceled, and then you have races in May like Chattanooga 70.3 that haven't been touched yet. And it kind of leaves people in limbo. But I think that, and while that might seem frustrating for people in their triathlon, you might think the industry, the racing itself is kind of got to go down. I see a huge uptick in the next year or two. That's just me being an optimist.
Man, you must
I
not
think
live in self-centered East Nashville like me.
oh, well, no, I don't. I don't live there.
Where people don't even look at you when they walk by or they run by. I was on the bike path the other day. I was running by a woman and she was walking with her, I think, like teenage daughter, maybe like 15
Mhm.
or something. I'm running down the right side, they're on the other side of the path, and she grabbed her by the arm and pulled her away from me when I ran by. I mean, I don't know if that was like virus related or potentially she saw some other danger in my eye or something.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
hey,
I don't know.
no, I'm with you, man. I
Oh,
think that's great that like bike shops are doing business because not a lot of people are. It's interesting to kind of look at what businesses are kind of
seriously.
benefiting from this, and it's really nice to hear that I hadn't put that together. That bike shops would be getting old bikes and people work
Mhm.
and getting their old stuff back together, and looking forward to maybe that day when they want to get back in shape because it is. Like I said, it's a time for reflection and looking in your backyard and everything like that. And hey, before we, uh, or should we just keep rolling? I
Go
last
ahead.
night.
You seem like you got something like you want to talk about, so go for it.
Well, I mean, because one of those businesses that's obviously booming is Netflix, and I'm just curious if you've been in there and if you've happened to pick up on Ozark yet.
If you've been in there, I have been in the Netflix, as we would call it. I am one of those people that I have extreme patience when it comes to Netflix. I'm a huge Ozark fan, but I like to go back to the beginning. So I am started in episode 1 of season 1, and I'm going to work my way through and then go seamlessly into season 3. I'm not a huge recap guy. I don't like them. I like to put things together, get the storyline right, remember the certain characters, and then kind of go right into it as kind of like a sustained slow build binge instead of like watching it all in like 3 seconds. But no, I'm excited about it. I've got a lot of friends, obviously, that like it, that love it like I do, that are already like halfway through or already finished. But I am about to wrap up season 1, and I'll try to finish up season 2 before I get into season 3.
Oh,
Right.
I watched the last one in season 2 and just got back in.
Yeah,
It
I'm excited
is
for it though.
unbelievable.
Sweet.
It's just the
Can't
best
wait.
show.
It
If
is.
you
It's
guys, I
awesome.
mean, it's so good. I don't, you know, I don't have a whole lot of best shows, but this thing is just blowing my doors off.
Yeah, it's
Literally.
it's it's a good one. I've tried to get Allie into it. It's kind of hit or miss because there is a lot of questionable, somewhat aggressive, violent scenes in it. That's not really her thing, but hey,
There's a few,
whatever.
yeah.
She's trying while she's cross stitching. Um, that's all from my update I got. I know we bored you listeners already here for what seemed like an hour and a half, and we're only 16 minutes in, but we aimed a negative split. That was the warm up. Now we're going to give you the meat, and then we'll probably cool it down a little bit. I am fine going back to what we had originally promised our listeners, which was picking back up through those questions we didn't even like remotely touch from last week. We did a kind of an open call for athletes to reach out, what kind of questions they had, and we'd hop into those. Or, as usual, we can talk about whatever. I'm open to either, and I'll let you make the call. That
I think we
that
should.
way that way you can get the hate mail when things don't go the way they should.
Yeah, no, I think there was some good questions there. I'm just trying to
I
find
got
them.
I
You
got
got
it
them.
pulled up. Yeah, I got you covered, buddy.
You got them hand.
Yeah. So
Let's
if you
go into
again,
them in a little.
yeah, if
Got a
you haven't
couple at
listened to
least.
that, yeah, go back and knock those out. We covered quite a few for those. The last one we covered was a question from Sean Sanford. That was one directly to you about meditation and meditative apps and stuff like that. The All right, let's hop back into one that I think is a really excellent question from Fawn. How does mental therapy exercise fit into a training plan? If I ran this morning because it was on my schedule, can I safely go do a couple more miles or just do a leisurely bike or ride or hike later in the day just to get outside and enjoy the weather? This is an absolutely excellent question. And I think it's specifically pertinent not just because of the situation we're finding ourselves in with the pandemic and people being sheltered at home and whatever. Um, but also like I referenced earlier was this huge like transition of seasons that we're finding right now. Like this is like the time of year where it's 75 one day and 40 the next, and then at some point we're just gonna like go right into like 95 and basically skip spring. We kind of flirt with summer, and at least here in Tennessee we flirt with summer and winter for about 45 days, and then we finally get in a relationship with blazing hot hell, and then it's 95 for the rest of the year. And so if there's never been, first of all, there's never been a better time to get outside and enjoy being outside. This is one of my favorite times of year. But it also comes into question is like what is too much and what is enough, because we talk about this a lot on our podcast. I talk about it a lot with our athletes, and I even sent out an email earlier today kind of referencing this flexibility that we need to have. And life is stressful as it is. Life is stressful 24/7, 365, no matter what is going on right now. That's obviously been heightened. And oftentimes we'll go into depth and discuss stress and accumulative fatigue, and the fact that when we're going through stressful times like life, the accumulative fatigue can seem almost insurmountable just from life, not from just fitness fatigue, but life fatigue. And right now can be one of those times. But as endurance athletes and as people who understand the benefits of getting outside and feeling the sunshine and getting your endorphins going and feeling fit and what it does for your mind and your body, we also find ourselves craving that even more. So we're kind of stuck in that limbo of, I'm super stressed, I might be more tired, my anxiety might be high, so I'm stressed, and then I might also want to kind of, balance that out equally, or even go overboard a little bit by overcompensating by running more than I normally should. And then that can get you into trouble, as you can run too much or run too hard or bike too much and bike too hard and do it too often. And now what you're doing is you kind of reach that tipping point where you're now too stressed, you're too fatigued, now you're becoming too tired, you've reduced your immune system, and now, not that you're going to get sick, but you're just going to get too tired. And now you're going to find yourself in a funk and overtrained, which is going to leave you with the unfortunate inability to do anything. And as a coach and as an athlete myself, like, training, applying load is the most important responsibility you have. And so when you think about being flexible and approaching this aspect of, or this subject of mental therapy exercise, is always start with the easiest, most consumable form, which is, to me, walking, hiking, or easy spinning. To me, those three things are always going to be net gains. They are specific ways you can get outside and enjoy just the endorphins, the feeling of the sun. Like you've had the same weather that we've had. For like a month, it was, is it ever going to be sunny again? Like, is it ever going to be sunny? And it was just like, it wears on you mentally and emotionally. And then these last week, it's been like sunshine, sunshine, sunshine. And you're like, this is awesome. You're optimistic, you feel better, you're more patient, your mood's in a better place, like, it feels great. So for me, like, walking and just getting out, taking your dog for a walk, getting outside, you might not find it exercise, but what it does is it will rejuvenate you positively in a way to allow you to better perform in the training that you're going to go down the road. So it's nice to be flexible. And I said this in my email this morning out to our athletes, is right now, your mental and emotional health is as, if not more important than any single workout. And if that means you have a structured bike ride on a Saturday and your friends are like, hey, do you want to go out on a bike ride because we're allowed to? We'll stay far apart, or we'll just start at the same time and then not get close to each other. And you feel like you need to do that, or you have this hard run that's got intervals or something in a long day, and you're like, you know what, I don't have the brain bandwidth to focus on this type of effort, but what I do have the want and the need to do is get out and run within the shape of this being an experience, not a session. So go run on the trails, or go run mindlessly with a group, or do something like that. Take a walk with, like, your family. Like, I had an athlete that was reading through Training Peaks this morning. He was like, hey, I was on my 2 hour run and I ran for the hour, then I ran right back by my house, and my wife was out with the kids and they were about to start a walk. So I pulled the plug and I walked with them. That is a gigantic, big fat yay. Okay, awesome. Not a, dude, why didn't you finish your session, man? Look, you got to push through. We got races to do this year. We got people to crush. No, dude, like, right now has never been a time to, like, really, 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 like, take care and cultivate where you are emotionally, but just do it in a balanced way. Don't go to the track and run so hard to run your feelings out. That's all it's going to do is leave you, probably with your feet propped up with either an injury or some kind of niggle that you're not going to be able to get rid of. Always support yourself in a healthy, positive way. It's like, people like myself who are in recovery. Like, you don't, like, you see people who can go out and have one drink, which is great. Go out, have a drink, relax, have a conversation with your friends. Then you have other people who, when they say they got to go out and blow some steam off, it doesn't include a glass of wine and conversation. It includes 4 shots of tequila and 8 glasses of vodka tonic. That's the kind of thing that you want to stick away from in terms of how you're applying, additional mental therapy exercise into your normal training plan.
Hmm. It's so interesting that that was the question, because I don't know if you saw that I just posted a new article in the hub.
I did not,
Oh, I didn't think
but
so, because I just
thanks.
posted it like before we
Ah,
got on here. It's called "I Broke Rule Number One," and it was um, rule number one was err on the side of caution. And my latest run, actually, it was a couple days ago, but I wrote the thing, and I haven't been running a whole lot and haven't built up much of endurance, but I felt great the other day and blah, blah, blah. The article's in there. I just posted in the group most of it. And I ran way further than I have all year. But to your point, it was a walk run and it felt very much therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I I walked out there and I said, I'm just going to play this one by ear. And I did this walk run, 1 minute walk by 3 minutes on, and real slow. I mean, it was legit zone one,
Mm-hmm.
zone 1.5.
So 1.5. Always got to give that extra credit. You're such a triathlete. Always got to give that extra credit. Like, yeah. What?
No, no,
How
no.
far? I ran
That wasn't.
13.46.
It
Like, can't
wasn't
just.
bragging. It was more like I tried zone one. It's just so hard, but I was pretty good. And I figured out like my longest run of the year was about around an hour, and this one went up for about 143, which was just silly in a way. But I told in the article that I felt like running. It was a beautiful day. I put on my little hydration belt, and then the big mistake I made was pulling up my shirt and looking in the mirror.
Oh,
The
buddy.
belt was like real tight against the top of my waistband, and I had that nice little jelly rolling over it.
Yeah,
And
the hydration pouch pooch. Like,
yeah,
we all
so
had that. Don't worry about it, man.
hydration
Just
pouch pooch. So the first thought I had was, you know what? I got to do an Ironman this year, and I got to get that thing done now. I got to get this shape back right now. So I had my motivation,
uh,
and I went out and but I did on one end err on the side of caution with how I approached it. So there was no real, I guess, casualty in that run, but it did feel good. And mentally, my mental therapy was there. It's like, oh, you know, the biggest thing was, because we talk about it all the time, the fear of losing fitness.
hmm
And as inconsistent as I've been, I got done with that run and I was like, you know what? I could run a half marathon right now. Not the greatest, but I could probably do it. So, I mean, I think mentally that is something that we can benefit from, once in a while. And I'm not suggesting people do these kind of things, but it was a good reminder that, yeah, okay, I'm not in the greatest shape, but I've been doing this for a while now, and there's something in my bones, and that that base is just doesn't like go away completely. It wouldn't have been the fastest half marathon of my life, but I probably could have done it and not been completely trashed. So um, yeah, that mental therapy is something.
it's we always need these things to be therapeutic, and to give it. You've always talked about this for you specifically. Is like, these should give us energy, not take it away. And right now, for a lot of us here, we're being stretched thin in a million different directions with no schedule. Like, there is no weekend. Like, it just kind of like muddles its way together. And so I think it's a very good time to be flexible and nurture that side of you that needs for activity to be a positive reinforcement to putting you in a better mood, to getting you in a better spirit, to taking care of the and working through your anxiety, and that can't come from running so hard that you traumatize yourself physically in terms of beating your muscles up and your body up so bad to an extent that it hasn't been prepared for. Like, that's not what you should do. Start with a walk, go for a hike, be active, be outside, and just enjoy that aspect of it before you have to like add some very strict session to it. The next one we got was from Kevin Drury. This one, Tommy Bombs and Athletes, that kind of covered this for him. But his question was, which is very common, so I want to read it anyway, was, should all Zone 2 work be done at the upper end of Zone 2 to ensure the best bang for your buck, or does the whole range give you the same physiological response? And Tommy covered this well, and it is was something that we discussed and just a couple podcasts ago, obviously, is about athletes and especially men. If they're given a zone or a range, then they think, well, I've got to go at the very, very high end of that range. I'm going to do it better because better is going to get me better. And a lot of times what happens is you're just spending extra energy and creating extra stress that you could have saved and going a little bit easier could have elicited the exact same response. And so no, like honestly, the higher end of zone two, like it's funny if you go out and you run the same routes a lot and your folks, I mean, their heart rate or pace, like you can tell when if I really have to amp it up effort wise, that you might go like 10 seconds faster per mile. And so if you think about that, like if you're going out and you're running, 6 miles, that increased effort over 60 minutes to raise your pace just 10 seconds is only going to save you a minute. So it's not worth it. So just don't always go high. Go with either medium and always start at the bottom. Always start at the bottom of a range and give yourself wiggle room. Most people try to get into ranges or zones so quick that by the time their heart rate or their power or their legs or body has woken up and got into it, they're already toast.
Mm.
Always ease into it. It's just like it shouldn't. You don't have to be there immediately. Like give your body time to prepare itself to get looser and then figure out, yeah, actually, like what kind of range you got for the day, because your body and your mind might be saying, especially right now when there's so many things weighing on us, a lot of us personally, it's like sometimes your body and your mind, like they have to have time to have a conversation. I know it might sound weird, but that's why your first mile should always be its slowest. That's why you should take a while to warm up and on your bike and find your legs, because it takes a while for your mind and your body to have a meaningful conversation to kind of figure out, hey, what do we really got today? And then for your emotions to be like, you know what, I have this to give. Like when sometimes I'll schedule workouts and I want an athlete to do like a really high threshold or like a VO2 session or a best average session or anything like really hard. And it's going to ask a lot of them, not just physically, but also mentally to push themselves to that area, and they might have it physically. They might have it, from a rest standpoint to be able to hit specific numbers or to get elicit a response you want out of it. But if they're not there mentally, then there's no way they're going to meet that objective. So one of the things I love to do as a coach is like, all right, well, let me reframe this into a workout that's more achievable and more attainable, which is like for me, that's like big gear work. Anybody can grind because you're not looking at a high heart rate. You're looking at, I just need to put out a lot of strength. And most athletes can absorb that and approach that in a much more, I guess, yeah, in an approachable way, because they look at it and think, that's not going to be that bad. Versus looking at a workout that they know is going to be very uncomfortable or it's going to have bouts of being uncomfortable, they're mentally not in the space to absorb it and take it. They're going to do two intervals and then they're not going to have what they wanted to, so they're going to bail on the rest. That's what you have to have, kind of a give and take. And that goes back to kind of that conversation or that question of, do I hop at the high end of zone two? No. Always allow your body to move that direction if it has it, and if you feel like you need it today, don't go there immediately. Always think about the finished product, not how you unwrap it. And that is how we should all approach all. Like I went out and ran this morning and I knew what kind of range I was looking at for a lot of different things. And I thought, I don't want to start there, but I kind of hope that but I want to give myself wiggle room to end there, because I was doing 5 like 30-second hill repeats at the end, very popular session that we do a lot with our squad. And I was like, all right, well, most people think, well, I want my pace to be really fast, because then when I want to get to the hills, I want it to get faster. Like you see that oftentimes when people do their cycling workouts, they're obsessed with their average power for the whole workout. And they'll do a hard interval, and then on the recovery period, they won't recover really well at all, because they're obsessed with their average power staying up, because they're obsessed with this number not going down. And what happens is, over the course of 5, 10, 15, 20 intervals, sometimes if you don't recover hard enough, what happens? Well, then your next actual on interval, where you're supposed to be putting out more power or doing reaching a certain goal, you're not going to be able to hit it because you didn't recover hard enough. You were obsessed about the overall number, not the execution. So when on my run today, I started out super easy, took a super flat route because I wanted to keep my legs underneath me. And my goal was I wanted to make that last like 4.5, 5 minutes be really good, and for me to feel really fresh, so I can end on a positive note, feeling good. Not let me make sure I get my pace really, really good for these first 40 minutes so I can make it even better the last 5. It's about intent and execution. So you have to be aware of that and let your mind and allow that time for your mind and body to say, I'm ready for this. Or conversely, actually, Robbie, I'm not ready for this today. So maybe rethink it before you actually do it and then something really bad happens.
Well, it's so interesting. You know me, I'm relatively obsessed with negative splitting in general. And on the run I was just talking about, that's what I was thinking is like I wanted to keep my I was just really going by feel to the point where I was judging my turnaround spot based on how I felt. And then when I got down to the end and I did turn around, my second split from the comeback route was 35 seconds faster than the way out.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to thinking about that. You know, it was like basically maybe 5 seconds a mile faster or something
Right.
roughly like that, 4 or 5 seconds a mile. And I just looked at that as a massive win. It's like four
Mm-hmm.
second per mile. But if you can do that, and I felt fine. I mean, you know, it was getting the end of a pretty long run for me, but those, it's like I think I put 7 things I learned or remembered from this run at the end of the article, and one of the things was, you know, uh, a negative split is a negative split. You know, it's like even if it's 2 seconds, it doesn't have to be like I used
Mm-hmm.
to get caught up in this idea that you know, I really wanted to make that second half like faster. I wanted to prove
Right.
that, you know what I mean? Like it's like easy, easy, easy. It's hard to force yourself to slow down in the beginning, of course, as we all know. But I was actually really forcing myself to slow down on the way back too. And the idea that, you know, you can negative split by 2, 3 seconds per mile, I think is really a good thing because then you're talking about the balance of the run, right? The whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance out this whole run and then
Yep.
end it on a high note rather than, yeah, I could have like put the hammer down the last couple miles and really negative split by maybe 3 minutes or something like that.
Yep.
But what's the point right there? um, if you want to finish like on a positive note, like we always say, like you just said, you know, finish with something that gives you energy and keeps you in a positive mindset, other than that you can look at a number and say, yeah, I crushed that, but now I feel like dog.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Did you win? Because you don't feel like you won. You feel destroyed.
No, but it's like exciting me for me to see those 2, 3 second faster miles. You know, it's almost like I feel like that shows me that I have even better control or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, or better
No, no,
feel
I
for
know.
my
I
body.
agree. It's like there's nothing like ending a run after you've gone long and finishing it faster than you started because you've gone longer where most people have faded, but you feel and are executing strength. That's why negative split runs are so encouraging and so great to do, is that they're very applicable to how things are going to go in a race, and that's why you have to practice them.
Mm.
Next question from Cindy Hewitt. I want to hear more about the new hub in Chattanooga, when it will open, and how it will be used. You can tune into our Zoom chat on Wednesdays. We discuss some of those things at the very end of it after we go through a Training Peaks conversation. Let's see. Kristen, is there a difference in zones depending on if you're biking versus running? And how do you recommend calculating those zones? Loaded question for a couple of reasons. One, there are a zillion ways based on somebody's method or the 9 drop-down menus in Training Peaks of how you can, from a percentage standpoint, calculate zones. Not only is there a tremendous amount of options to establish those zones based on, do you want 4 zones? Do you want 3 zones? Do you want 6 zones? What percentages did you get out of those zones? And then also, which is very significant, what test or duration or goal did you have to get the time or the average heart rate or the high heart rate or the power that now you're going to use on those zones? Most people have no idea. They just pick. Generally, and this is for most people, I would say 95% of people, and some people do this. As I'll say, when I say max heart rate, people are going to think this is the highest heart rate I can do, period. Well, when I think max heart rate, I think your max heart rate is 20 to 25 minutes what you can sustain for an average. Like if I have athletes go out and do like a 5K test or something and they use our heart rate monitor, I say I want your average heart rate for this span. To me, that's your max heart rate. The one single number that you can hit for your, like you're sprinting at your 5K, if you're establishing your zones from that one time you hit 184, then your zones are gonna be way off. Now, if you want to use it by something different, you can either use like 20 minutes. Some people do like a 30-minute standalone. And then it's like, well, do you want to use something that you did from a test, or is it going to do something you did, in a race? A lot of people, I like to suggest people do it individually, because I think that you're not going to be pushed as hard individually, like if you're doing a session by yourself, than in a race, because I think races will give you probably a better result. So you're probably going to be overshooting because you dug so deep and you went so hard, because you're in that race atmosphere, which most of us kind of thrive under and can perform better on. And then you're going to take that environment and now you're going to apply that one result to training, which is totally opposite. You're running out of your neighborhood cul-de-sac at 5:30 in the morning with no one around. What's the deal? So that's going to be affected that way. But generally speaking, most everyone that I've ever worked with, and I'm sure there are other people who don't have it this way, their high max running heart rate is always higher than their bike heart rate. I've always found it's in between 10 to 15, sometimes 20 beats per minute. And the reason is that not because you're not working hard, but a couple things. One, running kind of top end heart rate is, you're moving your entire body. You're not just moving your legs. You're moving your arms. It's like swimming on land. You're moving your whole body, which generates more blood flow, which has higher demand, which makes you work harder. So working harder requires more effort. You've got muscles going to or you got blood going to every single limb by how you're moving it. And the other impact, and this is even more kind of magnified if you ever run on trails, is just from the impact that the ground has on your body. Cycling, you're suspended for the most part in space on your bike with little to zero impact. Running on pavement, so it's a great analogy, I think, is take running on pavement to running on trails. The same effort running on pavement might get you like 10-minute miles. Then you hop in the trails, and that same exact effort, maybe even a little bit higher effort, might get you like 11-minute miles, because the terrain and the demands of what you're doing is so much harder. It's not, you don't get as much bounce from your step on the trail because it's dirt. You have to navigate more the east and west. So that's a kind of the other end of why your running heart rate is usually higher than it is on the bike. And then again, but going back to how do you establish those zones, that's all you. If you want to if you want to use zones, some people use 3 zones. A lot of people in cycling will, if they use zones, they just use 3, kind of a zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Some people use 5 zones. Some people use 7 zones. There's a lot of options. I love to go, if I'm doing cycling, generally like 5, because you're rarely going to go to 6. Running, we always run by effort and feel, unless they've been given paces, and that's usually just like 3 different ones. It's a huge, wide variety. But the biggest thing is pick a method, stick with it, pick a calculation, stick with it, and then see if you can see progress from there. And if you can't, then maybe try a different one. But it's a huge, like, there's just so many different ways people to calculate specific things with percentages, and then how you got it. That you have to try and stay uniform, or you're just going to be kind of going all over the place.
Mm. Do you think people, well, I don't want to say, do you think people get too caught up in like all the zone stuff too? Or, I mean, not, no. What am I trying to say here? Complicating it or something.
No, not triathletes. Would never complicate,
You know
like,
what? Yeah.
never yes, like,
I just
it's
think
it's really interesting.
easy, you should be able to kind of feel it, but whatever.
Easy, moderate, hard, or
Yeah.
easy to, like, I mean, it really is that easy. In terms of like listening to your body. But it's interesting that people like will open up their Garmin and turn it on, and then whatever like pre-factory settings have been installed on that Garmin, they now apply that to them specifically. Like,
Oh.
which is usually like the 220 minus their age, kind of thing, which is, in my opinion, just garbage. But yeah, there's so many different ways to figure out a zone, and then how wide that zone is, and then it just there's a lot. And then functional training, like your FTP, that is like that's a main one for cycling and establishing your zones. Like your zones are meaningless if your initial test or initial calculation is off, or your execution was off. Like, testing has its place. It's nice to have those, and I think they have a lot of benefits. But now they have like, it's like you went from the gold standard, which is a 60-minute test to figure out either your bike threshold heart rate or your power, right, for 60 minutes. And now we've done, as humans do, we've done and tried to find every manageable way to shrink that down to the smallest amount of minutes we can possibly handle. And then tell you we can at least get some kind of measurable calculation or number out of that that's going to actually be applicable to the training you need to do. Like, I think I've seen people do like a 4-minute test. Okay, so you're telling me that in 4 minutes, you can tell how well someone's going to do over 60 minutes. And you got ramp tests, and you got which is now like the standard, it's like a 20-minute FTP test. And then most people take 95% of that, which is still way overshooting. Most people are between like 88% and 92% of the number. So most people are their zones are screwed just by before they even end the test that they're taking, because they've done a test that's too short, they've done a test the wrong way, they've done a test on a bad day, or what's also common is, and I was thinking about this today on my run actually, as I have some athletes that are doing some testing this week, is most people think, oh, I'm not rested for this test, or there's so much stress going on right now. I really don't want to test right now. Well, hello. What do you think life is going to be like? I love, which is probably frustrating, I love to test when we're going through transitional periods in life. Because what testing should do is give you a hopefully some kind of a representation of how all of life is going to be, because all of life affects training, all of it affects training. So why would I want to create an expectation out of one perfect day in a vacuum where you had 3 days rest and you had 10 hours of sleep, and now you're able to produce this really, really, really high, power, and then the rest of your life as we know it is going to, from to now on, be the total opposite. Minimal sleep, higher stress, more fatigue. You're never going to be able to hit those numbers. You're never going to be able to be in those zones. So I always find it beneficial, in this time of year, especially when many of us are going from indoor training to outdoor training. It's always a great time to kind of establish and kind of get your brains wrapped around. Obviously, it's different for different parts of the country, but and where you are in like your training cycle. But like, you should never always want to just do your test under perfect circumstances, because you're never going to train in perfect, excuse me, circumstances. Um, and so I think that again, there's so many variables to take into account when doing those kinds of things.
Hmm. You mean to say with that when I sleep only 3 hours before an Ironman, that's not perfect circumstances?
What do you mean by that?
I'm just saying. No, I agree with, because what you're saying is like, yeah, I mean, like we could all probably go to like a spa for a week and relax and get ready for our test, but what point is that really? It's like it's testing your metal, as you would say.
Yeah. Oh, we all know people, or we've been there in ourselves, where who are, I call them perfect Pats. Every situation has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. The ground has to be perfectly paved. They've had to have 10 hours of sleep. The grocery store had to be stocked with their salmon fillet and their white rice and their side of asparagus. And oh my God, I didn't have my asparagus this morning or last night as my pre-ride test meal. I don't know how things are going to go. Like, I already feel like things aren't going to go the way that I thought they were going to go, and I just know that this isn't going to be my time. Like, people just talk the anyway. Next question. I don't want to go off on perfect Pat. Um, Let me see, who was the next one here. Jacob, how does taking swims away affect cardiovascular fitness? It's not going to. It's a great question right now. Obviously, with many people are restricted to zero swimming. Is it going to affect your aerobic capacity in a negative way? Not really. Is it going to feel like it's going to when you get back in the pool? Yes, because I'm a firm believer in that like 80% of 75 to 80% of aerobic capacity and aerobic fitness is translatable to other sports. It's that 20% that changes everything. Like I think a lot of us are probably figuring this out in terms of, strength and aerobic endurance. Is a lot of us are out working in the yards and doing things around the house, and we find ourselves feeling like, man, we're really in shape, man. Like I can do this. And then you go out in the work and you go work in the yard for like 30 minutes and you're like, dude, I'm shelled. What
I
happened to me?
know. Yeah.
I'm like, and like, okay, so you have fitness, but yet it's not specific fitness. And so we all have, a fitness that's translatable. It goes from one thing to another. Like you could take a person who rides their bike 7 days a week, like a Tour de France rider, who, let's say he runs like 1 day a week and then he rides either 6 days and he's like, high level pro, and you put him against a guy that runs like 3 days a week. I'd say they probably end up fairly close to each other. Like I find it's about things that are specific. So you got arm fatigue, and I think it's going to take you people a couple of weeks. But then now that you've removed that stress, that swim stress, the aerobic capacity that you generate while you're swimming, the anaerobic work you do while that you are in when you do certain swim sessions, that's going to be removed. But you can also add that to an extent to some of your other cycling and running because you have that extra stress going on. You also have other stress going on in your life right now as well, so you don't want to add too much. But you're not going to feel any kind of downward spiral aerobically. You are going to feel it a little bit the first time you get in the water from an anaerobic standpoint, but once you kind of prime that engine after a week or two, it'll be just like riding a bike
Mm.
for most.
Speaking of
But
that,
also, that's also very dependent on what kind of bike you built before it was taken away. Like if you're a person who swam once or twice a week and it was all super easy and chill, well, see ya. Like it's gonna suck big time when you gotta get back in the pool. If you swam 2 to 3 days a week and a lot of them are hard and you really built up this really big, engine and this really big capacity to swim hard and to use a lot of strength and use a lot of power to swim fast, the level and the percentage of erosion you might feel in strength and muscular endurance and aerobic capacity in swimming isn't going to be nearly as great as a person who didn't have any.
that just made me think of something because obviously we've been telling people to just it's almost like just try not to neglect your upper body right now by doing body weight stuff or whatever that may be. And I just thought of that when you mentioned cycling was that I mean, I don't know, maybe it's a good translation, but like it's a good time to be spending a lot of time in aero because like I know when I start getting back into aero position after a while off, my body and my upper body struggles with that and my arms and shoulders and things like that. So maybe that even has a little bit of a translation to work in your upper body for swimming. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is translatable. It's just, I know I've worked with a lot of athletes too that have done like really, really long endurance swims, like 10, 15, 20-mile swims. And they find cycling to be incredibly helpful as cross training for swimming. There's a lot of things that can go back and forth. And so I think that, um, like there are things that are specific. Yet again, you have to be flexible in terms of understanding that aerobic fitness is still aerobic fitness, and it doesn't just evaporate and go away because you do something else. You'll just be affected differently. Like we use the yard work example. You'll just be affected differently in different areas depending on what you had built up beforehand.
Mm, yeah, just don't let your upper body atrophy right now.
Yeah, especially for yard work. Let's see what kind of time are we looking at? Oh, we're at 53. We got time for at least one more. Let's see. Let's pick a good one. Not that they're not good. I covered the virtual racing with some fire. Um, Here's a quick one. David Volk, how many pairs of running shoes should I own? You're going on a long run. What do you take? How much do you take? And when do you take it? Man, like, could you be any more general? Um, I have 2 pairs of running shoes, one that I wear on my long runs, one that I wear on my shorter runs. And a lot of times I just choose the pair based on, sometimes I just choose a pair based on how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling really fresh, I go with my lighter ones. If I'm feeling really run down, I put on my kind of heavier cushion ones. What do I carry with me? I carry water and nutrition, like most of you should. Let's see, what else? A couple ones that everybody liked or seemed to feel were pertinent. As we're now quarantining, is it a great time to grow a beard? Yeah, it is always a great time to grow a beard. Let's see, we already covered the heart rate
I'm growing a
one.
mustache.
Oh God. Are you sure about that? It's good. It's a good thing you're self-isolating. You might as well be self-isolating anyway, because I'm not sure people want to talk to you with a stash. Danny Balos, better to bike than run, or vice versa if doing a reasonable brick session. I'm not a gigantic fan of bricks, but I always prefer and suggest running before riding. I think it's a better ROI, better bang for your buck. Your body honestly couldn't care less if it knows you're doing a brick. It just knows that it's running. So why not run well and run with good form? Here's a good one. Here's a good to end off of. Rachel, what's one good thing or unexpected benefit you've experienced as a result of social distancing or staying at home? Personally, it has been I've had to constructively and quickly work through that feeling of I need to be busy doing something. The first week that we were home with Hayden, we were on like day 17 now. Um, well, the first week was just awful because as a coach, as a person who works with a lot of athletes, and this is also a business, like you feel like you have to get as much stuff done as you possibly can all the time, and that meant like getting up and rushing to daycare and getting work done and like having a schedule and I got to work, I got to work, I got to work. So I still had that mentality while Hayden was like around, like, hey, I want to do this, hey, I want to do that, hey, I want to do this, and then it was just incredibly hard. And then we were taking a shower. He hopped in the shower with me instead of doing a bath. Like the fourth or fifth night we were doing this, and he was like, "Let me see the shampoo bottle." And I was like, "All right, fine, whatever. You never know what a 3-year-old's gonna do with a shampoo bottle." And I was like, "Fine, here." So he puts it over this little like stool or whatever we have in the shower, and he starts like typing on it. And so he starts playing this game with me, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You be Hayden, and I'll be the daddy." And I was like, "All right, I can do that. Like whatever. It sounds fairly easy." I was like, that's a lot of responsibility. And he was like, "Ask me what I'm doing." And I was like, "All right, what are you doing, Dad?" And he was like, hold on a second. I'm working. And I don't think he obviously, he was 3. He didn't mean it in like like a jab at dad. You work too much, because I don't even think he understands what work is. But it was just like a friendly reminder. Like, I think toddlers can definitely troll us as adults, but it was kind of like a reminder of like, all right, like you had this opportunity from like when I was growing up, both my parents worked and they worked a lot and like a ton. My dad's for sure a workaholic, and I'd come home from school every day at 3, and then they wouldn't get home until 5:30, 6 o'clock, and you're just kind of like left to kind of do it your own thing. And now I kind of look at it, being another week and a half past, and like we've gone out and like gotten to ride our bike every single day and like done these things that I feel very grateful that he has no idea what's going on, zero. He just knows he's not going to school. But that we have this unique opportunity to spend more time with him, that, in 5, 7, 10 years, when we look back and can tell him about all this, it can be one of those things that will have brought us closer as me as his father and us as a family, than the opposite. And so while there's definitely some drawbacks and there's obviously really not fun things going on in the world, it has definitely provided more opportunities, I think, to kind of be closer with your family and your loved ones. But also, I think for me specifically, it just reminded me how obsessed with being busy we always are, that I have to be busy. I have to be doing something, and that doesn't. You're kind of just on this planet. You're not really living it, and so that's been one for me. That's been pretty noticeable.
Well, it's funny because the one benefit for me is that I'm recognizing that people are realizing that, because that's sort of how I live, man. I really try to do that, and it's almost made me appreciate being around people more. That was supposed to be a joke in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was waiting for you to do like the like
I
thing. It
should say
sounds
being
like
around
this.
big groups. But no, I really agree, man. I keep thinking about this in terms of, wow, is this going to be a precedent of
Hmm.
sorts? Are we going to kind of like do these things in the future, and then sort of that becomes part of our lifestyle, almost like a reset of step back and look at things, and how are we appreciating life, and all that sort of stuff. And
You told me earlier, no. You told me earlier when I was shooting out and spitting out, optimism like a sprinkler on a warm summer day. You were like, no, there's a kink in your hose. It's gonna stop. It's never gonna happen. Go
no,
back
I
to living.
meant like as a practice of like, oh, the flu's here this year. We need to back out for 2 weeks and sit at home.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
I don't
you're
know.
all you're all about like theories and stuff like that. I don't really get on that
I,
train.
I mean, I just look at things and how they may impact us moving forward, and uh, it's really, I have to be honest. I'm just not scared. I think a lot of that has to do with what I just went through with my dad, and I watched him kind of
Yeah.
fade away, and it was a peaceful experience on a lot of levels, and so I'm trying not to be, like I don't want to. I just I think fear really runs rampant in all our lives, and I've struggled with that a lot of times. Sort of this unknown future or whatever it may be, and being afraid of it. And I haven't been afraid. I've just really sort of liking what I see about how people are kind of like stepping back, and I mean, honestly, I am positive about that as well. I do think that people are certainly having to reflect now, and to me, that's a huge benefit. Now, I mean, we've seen many, many tragedies, or I have in my life, like the 9/11s of the world, where people have kind of come together and shook hands and hugged and all that sort of thing, and then kind of fades away. But it's a slow burn. It's a slow lesson, I think, in humanity, and hopefully we are pulling something out of this, and kind of a deeper picture. Like, yeah, okay, do we need to work nonstop all weekend and everything like that, or
Hmm.
what's the point? Isn't it really about designing our lifestyle in a way that we can appreciate it? Some friend of mine the other day asked me a question. It's like, or he actually posed a question. I was like, "How you doing?" He's like, "I don't know. I'm frazzled, blah blah blah." And then he said, "Then I finally asked myself the question: Am I enjoying this? Am I enjoying life?"
Hmm.
And I think that's a good question. Why aren't you enjoying it this moment, or whatever's in front of you? Why aren't you enjoying it? And it really makes you think. It's like we can have all the information and the stats and the data and the quote unquote know-how about how to live, but are you enjoying it?
Hmm. I think it's been increasingly difficult for people who, because I've been there, for people who are usually who are very unhappy, that find different ways to kind of subdue their level of unhappiness by going out and doing things or keeping really, really, really busy. They're now left with those opportunities are now gone. And so they're having a more difficult time because they don't have those same opportunities of suppression to suppress those feelings of unhappiness. And hopefully it leads to some thoughtful and constructive kind of revamping of how they really want things to go.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that that question, are you enjoying yourself, is really a relevant one to ask right now with regards to triathlon.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, think about what you're doing and how it feels, and is it something that you enjoy, or are you approaching it in a way that it's enjoyable?
Hmm. If not, now's never been a better time to kind of revamp the way you're thinking at that.
Yeah, no kidding. And if you're not, I think maybe if you took a little peek in the hub, the online hub, you might enjoy it a little bit more.
Right.
You've got to
The
pay what you
internet
want going
passes.
on.
Right.
C26triathlon.com. Go to the online hub and hover for a preview.
And hover for a preview. Hey, man, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
We'll make it a wrap. We'll finish up the other ones at some point. But those are good. As always, we appreciate you all tuning in. We hope you're all hanging tough. Looking for the moments that are half glass full and not empty, and keep moving on. There'll be a lot. Listen, the best plan you can make right now is to not have one, because we got to be flexible. Things are going to be changing. You just got to settle in, kick back, and get ready to enjoy the ride and see where it kind of. It's like getting in line for a roller coaster you've never been on. You have no idea how it's really going to go. You just know that's going to be over at some point, but it'll be fun. So just kind of settle in, enjoy, take care of yourself, stay healthy, be happy, and we will catch you again on Thursday.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot for the
And
conversation.
talk to you later.
See ya.